The space station was loud, dirty, and full of thieves. Jack moved carefully through the black market corridors, looking for a rare engine stabilizer for his broken ship. He wasn't rich or powerful, just a human mechanic trying to survive. He had saved every credit he earned from odd jobs, just enough to hopefully find the part he needed to fly again. The vendors shouted at him, showing weapons, strange alien pets, and glittering illegal tech. Jack ignored them, walking straight to a grumpy old trader who sold lost cargo from raided ships. "I need a Class 9 engine core bracket," Jack said, sliding his credits across the counter. The trader scratched his chin and pointed at a sealed crate in the corner. "Could be what you're looking for. Came from a wrecked freighter. Won't open it here. You buy, you take." Jack frowned. The crate was large. It's too large for a part, but the price was low, suspiciously low. Still, he didn't want to leave empty-handed. "Fine," Jack muttered and paid. The trader smirked, dragging the heavy crate onto Jack's hovercart. "No refunds," he said, and disappeared into the crowd. Jack reached his ship and pulled the crate into his cargo bay. His ship was old, rusted, and freezing inside. The heater barely worked. He grabbed a crowbar and started opening the crate. Metal cracked, hinges popped loosened. Then, something inside moved. Jack froze. He expected a hunk of steel, not something alive. Then, a soft cough. And suddenly, the lid fell open. Inside, lying on soft fabric, was a girl, an alien girl. She looked young, but not a child, maybe in her early 20s in human years. Her skin was a pale violet. Her long hair silver and tangled, pointed ears poked out through her messy hair. She wore very little clothing, just torn straps and strange jewelry. Her wrists and ankles were chained. Her eyes glowing faint blue, wide with fear. She blinked at him and whispered, "Master?" Jack stepped back, shocked. "What?" "No, I'm not. What is this?" The girl slowly sat up, wincing, then bowed her head low. I am yours now," she said softly. "Please don't hurt me." Jack stared at her. "No." "Didn't mean to buy you," he said, his voice tight. "I thought you were a machine part, not a person." The girl trembled, still looking down. "I was told I belonged to the highest bidder," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I can serve, cook, clean, or whatever else you wish." Jack felt sick. He had bought a slave. He gently stepped forward and knelt down. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice calm. "You're not my slave." "I don't want a slave." She looked up slowly, confused. Then, "Why did you buy me?" "I didn't know," Jack said honestly. "I thought you were a ship part." He looked at her again. She was beautiful, even in her broken state. But what hit him harder was the sadness in her eyes. He stood up and grabbed a blanket from a storage bin. "Here, you must be freezing," he said. Wrapping it around her shoulders, she gasped softly, like she didn't expect kindness. Her fingers held the fabric tightly, like it might disappear. "Do you have a name?" he asked. She nodded slightly. "Lyra," she whispered, "but I was told to forget it. I was unit to TD7 to the last owner." Jack clenched his jaw. "Lyra," he said firmly, "you're safe now." She didn't reply, but her eyes filled with tears. And then, without warning, she leaned forward and touched her forehead too. His boot. "What are you doing?" Jack asked. Surprised. "It's how we show loyalty," she said. "Please, don't throw me away. I can be useful." Jack took a deep breath. This wasn't what he planned. This wasn't what he wanted. But he couldn't just leave her like this. Not in a cage, not in chains, not anymore. "Lyra," he said, "you're not going back to them. I'll figure this out, I promise." And somewhere deep inside, a spark of hope lit in her eyes. For the first time, the ship's engine hummed in the background. But inside the quiet cargo bay, Jack stood frozen. Still trying to understand what he had just done. He didn't mean to buy her. But that didn't matter now. The alien girl, Lyra, sat quietly on the floor with a blanket still wrapped around her slim shoulders. Her silver hair falling gently over her face. Her eyes followed Jack carefully, watching his every move, not with anger, but with fear and confusion. Jack walked over to the storage panel and grabbed a bottle of clean water. He knelt beside her again and offered it without saying a word. She looked at it like it was a precious gift, took it with both hands, and drank carefully. Every sip was slow, like she had learned to ration even water. "Thank you, Master," she said softly, bowing. Her head, Jack's stomach tightened. "I'm not your master," he replied gently. "Please." "Just call me Jack." She hesitated, then looked up. "Jack," she repeated, her voice small and unfamiliar with the name. "But what should I call myself?" She added, as if asking permission to have a name again. "You told me your name was Lyra," he said. She nodded slowly. "Yes. But the others said I couldn't use it anymore." "Well," Jack said, with a small smile, "I say you can." For the first time, she blinked fast. Her eyes glimmered, not just with fear, but confusion, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that, like she was someone real, not just something bought. Later that evening, Jack prepared a small meal in the ship's kitchen, nothing fancy, just heat packs and ration bars, but when he placed a plate in front of her, Lyra stared at it as if it were treasure. "Is this for me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," Jack replied. "Of course it is." She looked unsure, but picked up the food and started eating carefully, like she expected it to be taken away at any moment. Every bite was small, polite, like someone who had learned never to take too much. Jack sat across from her, pretending not to watch. But deep down, he was watching everything. Her body was thin, too thin, like she hadn't eaten properly in days. He wondered how long she had been trapped like this. How many owners she had before him, and how many never even asked for her name. "Do you remember where you came from?" he asked quietly. Lyra lowered her eyes. "My homeworld is gone. Raided years ago," she said. "I was just a child. They took all the girls, the pretty ones first." Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept going. "I was sold and passed from ship to ship. Some didn't hurt me, others did." Jack clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to say something, maybe comfort her, but no words felt right. So he said the only thing he could. "I'm sorry." Lyra looked up slowly. "You're the first one who said that," she whispered. "The first one who didn't want to use me." That night, Jack returned to the pilot seat to check fuel levels, systems, and everything else, trying to distract himself, but he couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. Her voice, her eyes, the way she asked permission. Just to eat or speak, she was trained to obey, but not to live. She didn't know how to be safe, because she never had been. When he turned around, she was there again, standing silently by the door. He jumped slightly. "Lyra, you scared?" "Me." She looked down. "Forgive me. I didn't want to sleep alone. I can sit on the floor here." "I won't disturb you." Jack sighed and got up. "No, come on. There's a sleeping bench. You're not sitting on the floor." He took her to the small room with a padded bench and handed her a warm pillow. She hesitated before sitting, then looked at him with large, unsure eyes. "If I fall asleep, will you still be here?" she asked. Jack nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." She smiled barely, but it was the first smile he had seen on her face. It was small, soft, but full of hidden hope. Then she curled up on the bench, holding the pillow close, and after a while, her breathing slowed, and she drifted to sleep. Jack watched her for a moment longer before walking out as he stepped into the hallway. He muttered to himself, "This isn't just about fixing a ship anymore," and he knew he had. just stepped into something much bigger. A life was now in his hands, and he had no idea what came next. Jack sat in the cockpit of his ship, staring at the stars beyond the dusty glass window. The stars didn't care what had happened on that black market station. They didn't care about the girl sleeping quietly behind him, wrapped in a blanket. And holding a pillow like it was her only safety, he leaned back in the pilot chair. Rubbing his tired eyes, his thoughts weren't on repairs anymore. They were on Lyra. She had barely eaten, barely spoken, yet somehow she trusted him. Or maybe she didn't trust him. Maybe she just didn't know what else to do. Sometime past midnight, Jack stood up and walked quietly to check on her. He peered into the small sleeping cabin where he had let her rest and froze. She wasn't asleep. She was sitting up, staring directly at the door as soon as she saw him. She quickly stood and bowed slightly. "You're still awake?" he asked, surprised I was watching. She said softly, "In case someone tried to hurt you." Jack stepped inside slowly. "No one's coming, Lyra. The doors are locked." "You can sleep," she hesitated, then lowered her eyes. "I used to get punished if I fell asleep before the master," she whispered, "and if I slept too deeply, I wouldn't hear when they called." Jack felt a sharp pain in his chest. She wasn't just broken, she was trained to live in fear. "You're safe here," he repeated. "No one will punish you. No one will hurt me. Just rest." She nodded slowly and sat down again. But even as he turned to leave, he could feel her eyes still watching him. The next day, Jack made them both a warm meal using his emergency rations. He didn't have much, but it was better than what she'd been getting for years. As she ate, she looked at him carefully. "Do you have an owner?" she asked suddenly. Jack almost laughed, but held it back. "No, I'm free," he said. "Humans don't have owners, not in our culture." Lyra blinked, confused. "So? You're always free?" "Not always," Jack replied honestly. "Some humans get trapped by others, not with chains, but with control. Fear, lies." She nodded slowly, understanding more than he expected. "Then maybe I was never free. Even before the cages," she whispered. Jack looked at her gently. "Maybe," he said, "but you can be now." Later that afternoon, Lyra followed him as he worked on the ship's broken thrusters. She didn't speak much, but she watched, asked small questions, and handed him tools without being asked. "You learn fast," Jack said, wiping grease from his hands. She smiled just a little. "My last owner made me work with wires. If I made a mistake, I didn't eat that night." Jack's jaw clenched. "How many owners did you have?" he asked carefully. Lyra paused, her eyes distant. "I stopped counting after 8. She whispered. There was silence for a moment, broken only by the soft hum of tools. Jack stood, brushing dust off his pants. "I need to get some parts from the scrapyard nearby," he said. "You should stay here." Rest. Lyra's face changed. She suddenly looked nervous. "Please, can I come?" she asked quickly. "I won't get in the way." "I swear." Jack saw the panic behind her calm voice. She wasn't asking because she wanted to help. She was scared of being left behind. "You can come," he said, "but you don't have to be afraid. I'm not leaving you." Her body relaxed slightly, and for the first time, she smiled without fear. At the scrapyard, the Onera gruff, four-armed alien named Drog raised an eyebrow when he saw Lyra. "New merchandise. Human?" he sneered. Jack stepped forward, voice sharp. "She's not merchandise," he said. "She's my crew." Lyra looked up at Jack with wide eyes. "Crew, not slave, not property." Drog laughed and waved his hands. "Relax, human." "Just asking," but Jack didn't relax. He stayed close to Lyra the whole time. Not because she was fragile, but because he didn't want her to be afraid again on the way back. As they walked through the rusty market streets, Lyra looked around quietly. No one shouted at her. No one grabbed her for the first time. She moved without chains on her ankles. "Jack," she whispered as they walked. "Thank you for not treating me like a thing." Jack looked at her, then smiled slightly. "You're not a thing," he said. "You're a person, Lyra, and you don't owe me anything." She stopped walking for a moment, and in the busy crowd of aliens, strange smells and loud voices, she reached out and held Jack's hand. Just for a moment, then she let go and kept walking. But that 1 second felt like everything had changed. Back on the ship, the silence felt peaceful. For once, it wasn't heavy or cold, it felt safe. Lyra sat near the small heater, warming her hands, her eyes focused on the flickering light. She still hadn't said much since they returned from the scrapyard. Jack worked on sorting the spare parts, trying to keep busy. But he couldn't ignore the feeling growing inside him. A part of him was angry not at her, but at the world. What kind of galaxy let this happen to someone like her? He looked up and noticed her hand slowly reaching for her neck. Even though her chains were gone, something still remained. The thin silver collar, smooth and tight around her throat. Not heavy, but cruel in its message. Owned, controlled, silenced. Does it hurt? Jack asked gently, walking over. Lyra quickly pulled her hand away. Startled, "No," she said softly, then paused. "Yes, but not on the outside." Jack knelt in front of her and held up a small tool, "I think I can take it off," he said. Her eyes widened. "You want to?" "Yes," he said firmly. "If you want me to." Lyra hesitated. Her fingers touched the collar again. "I've worn it for so long. I forgot what my neck feels like without it." She looked at Jack and whispered, "Will you still keep me, if it's gone?" Jack blinked, surprised by the question. "Lyra," he said softly, "I never kept you. You've been free since the day I opened that crate." Her lips trembled, but she gave a small nod. Jack raised the tool and gently worked on the collar's lock. It took a few clicks. Then a soft snap, and the collar dropped into his hands, cold and lifeless. Lyra didn't move for a moment. Then her hands slowly touched her bare neck. She gasped, just a breath, but it shook through her whole body. Tears welled up in her eyes. And then without a sound, they rolled down her cheeks. Jack started to speak, but she suddenly threw her arms around him, tightly, desperately, like someone holding on to the one good thing in their world. He didn't move. He let her cry, her body shaking against his chest. Not with pain, but with something far more powerful. Released that night, Lyra didn't stay at the doorway or sleep in fear. She curled up on the sleeping bench and actually closed her eyes. And Jack stayed near, not because she asked, but because he wanted to. She had survived horrors he couldn't imagine, but now she was safe, and for the first time. Maybe she believed it too. The next day, Jack found her in the engine room. She was wiping down dusty panels, carefully organizing tools. "You don't have to do all this," he said, smiling a little. "I know," she replied with a shy grin. "But I want to." He paused, watching her move freely. No chains, no collar, no fear in her eyes, just light. Something was blooming inside her. Something that had been locked away for years. Hope, confidence, maybe even joy. Jack looked at her hands, still a little shaky. Still healing, but they were steady now. Not afraid, not hiding. And in her reflection on the steel wall, she saw someone new, later, while fixing a loose stabilizer. Jack handed her a power wrench. "You're really getting the hang of this," he said. Lyra smiled. "I used to hate tools. They reminded me of punishment." She held up the wrench and added, "Now they feel like power." He laughed lightly. "You've got a smart brain. Ever think about being an engineer?" She tilted her head. "I never thought about being anything. Now I wonder, what else can I be?" That evening, she cooked. It was simple, just some dried vegetables and spice packs. But Jack sat at the table and watched her move confidently in the tiny kitchen corner. No fear. No waiting for orders. When she placed the plate in front of him, he looked at her and smiled. "You're becoming the heart of this ship," he said. Lyra laughed softly, then paused. "Can I ask something strange?" "Sure," Jack replied. Curious, she sat beside him and said, "If I had met you before the cages, do you think you would have liked me?" Jack looked into her eyes. "I like you now," he said without hesitation, "and not because of your past or what happened to you. I like who you are becoming, Lyra. Strong, smart, kind." Her cheeks flushed slightly, her smile more real than ever before. And when she looked down at her plate, it wasn't because of shame. It was because someone had finally seen her, not as a slave, not as a tool, but as a person, and she didn't want to let that go. Jack leaned under the engine panel, twisting wires, sparks crackling near his gloves. The ship was almost ready to fly again, just a few more fixes and they could leave the station behind. He smiled to himself. Lyra was humming softly in the next room. It was a song from her homeworld, something quiet and sweet. Jack didn't understand the words, but he felt the peace in her voice. Then the door console flashed red. Incoming transmission, unknown Sigonale. Jack wiped his hands and tapped the panel. A rough, low voice echoed through the ship. "Human, you took something that doesn't belong to you." The screen blinked, on revealing a scarred, four-eyed alien with a gold tooth and leather armor. Behind him, several armed thugs stood. In shadow, weapons ready. Jack's smile vanished. "You're the traitors," he said coldly. The alien laughed. "Smart, aren't you?" She was marked, tagged, registered. She was property. She's not property. Jack growled. "She's a person." The alien's tone turned sharp. "You've made a mistake, human. She was meant for a rich client now. We've lost money, so you'll pay. With her, or with your blood." Jack slammed the panel shut, locking out the signal. He rushed into the main hallway and found Lyra near the engine bay. Her smile faded the moment she saw his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, standing quickly. "They found us, Jack," said the traitors. "They want you back." Lyra froze, her entire body shaking. Her hands reached for her neck where the collar once was. No, I can't go back," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I won't survive again. I won't." Jack grabbed her shoulders gently. "You're not going back," he said firmly. "I won't let them take you." She looked at him, broken and scared. "But they're powerful. They'll hurt you, then let them try," Jack said, his voice like steel. "This time, someone's going to fight for you." They sealed the ship tight, turning off outside signals and activating every lock. Jack handed her a small shock blast turned lethal. "But enough to protect herself. I hope you won't need it," he said. "But if anyone gets close, don't hesitate." Lyra nodded, her hands trembling as she held the weapon. "I've never fired one before." Jack placed his hand over hers. "Just point. And protect yourself." Suddenly, the hull shook. A loud bang echoed through the cargo bay. "They've docked," Jack muttered. "They're forcing their way in." Lyra's eyes went wide. "Jack, hide me, please." But he shook his head. No more hiding. "This is your ship too now." The door burst open and 3 traitors stormed inside, blasters raised, voices yelling, "Give her up, human. You don't know who you're messing with." Jack stepped in front of Lyra, gun drawn. "She's not yours," he said. "Back off before someone gets hurt." One of the traitors laughed. "You're going to die for a toy?" Lyra stepped forward, her voice shaky but clear. "I'm not a toy," she said. "I'm not a slave." "I'm not yours anymore." The leader pointed his gun at her. Wrong answer. He snarled, but before he could fire, Lyra squeezed the trigger. A bright electric charge shot from the blaster. Hitting the alien square in the chest, he fell. Backward, convulsing on the ground, the other two stepped back in shock. Forget this. She's more trouble than she's worth. They grabbed their leader and dragged him away. We'll find you again, human. One yelled, you won't be so lucky next time. The door slammed shut as they retreated, leaving smoke and silence behind. Lyra dropped the blaster, her hands still shaking. I shot him, she whispered. You saved us, Jack replied, smiling with pride. I didn't even have to pull the trigger. She looked up at him, eyes wide with emotion. I was so scared, but I didn't want to lose this, lose you. Jack walked to her and gently took her hands. You didn't lose anything, he said. You stood up for yourself. You faced your past and beat it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But what if they come back? Then we'll be ready, Jack said. Together, that night. The ship floated quietly in orbit, stars glowing outside like distant lanterns. Jack sat by the main console, Lyra beside him, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her head resting on his shoulder, she didn't speak, but she didn't need to. Her eyes were calm. No longer filled with fear, the collar was gone, the chains broken, and the girl who once hid in a crate had fought back. He looked down at her and whispered, they might come again. But they'll never take you. She smiled without fear. For the first time, and softly whispered, they can't take what's already free. The ship drifted through space, quiet like a sleeping beast, inside. Peace returned, but it was not the same kind of peace as before. This one felt earned, like something fought for. Like something held tightly. Lyra sat at the window, staring out at the stars. Her hands rested on her knees, no longer shaking. Jack worked silently in the engine bay, making sure the damaged hatch was sealed tight after the earlier attack. He glanced at her now and then, wondering what she was thinking. She had changed, he could feel it. The girl who once flinched at shadows had stepped in front of a gun. She had protected him, risked herself, and now she wasn't just a guest on his ship. She was part of it. Part of his world that night. Lyra made something different, her own version of soup, using Jack's limited ingredients. It was lumpy, strange in color, and had a strange, sweet smell. But when Jack tasted it, he smiled. It's not bad, he said. Honestly surprised, she laughed, her eyes lighting up. I didn't poison you. She teased gently. Nope. Just confused my taste buds. He replied with a grin. That laughter, soft and free, warmed the cold corners of the ship. It warmed him. After dinner, they sat on the floor of the control room, legs crossed, sharing a quiet moment. Jack handed her a small cloth bag. What's this? She asked, curious. He smiled. Something I found in the old market before I bought. That crate? He said awkwardly. Lyra opened it and gasped. It was a simple necklace with a glowing crystal. Pale blue and warm to touch. This is like the ones from my planet, she said, her voice shaking. My mother used to wear one. I thought it looked pretty, Jack said. Scratching the back of his neck, didn't know it was special. She didn't speak, she just threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly, not out of fear, not for safety, but something deeper. Gratitude, trust, maybe even the beginning of love later. While Jack was fixing a loose panel above the doorway, Lyra watched from below. Be careful, she said. That part looks like it might. The panel broke loose, falling straight toward Jack's head. Without thinking, Lyra leaped forward. Pushing him out of the way, the panel crashed to the floor with a loud clang. Jack lay on the ground, staring at her in surprise. You just saved me. Again, Lyra sat beside him, breathing hard. I didn't think, she whispered. I couldn't let you get hurt. He looked at her, truly looked at her. Her silver hair was messy, her cheeks flushed, and there was a small scratch on her forehead. But she was beautiful because she wasn't afraid anymore. "You're something else." "Lyra," he said softly. She looked down, embarrassed. "I'm still learning how to be normal." "You're doing just fine," he replied, gently wiping the scratch with a cloth better than most people I know. Later that night, as the stars passed outside their window, Lyra sat beside Jack and asked a question that caught him by surprise. "Do you like having me here?" Jack turned his head, confused. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" She hesitated, playing with the crystal on her necklace. "I was trained to be whatever someone wanted me to be. Quiet, obedient, invisible. But now, I don't know what to be." Jack reached over and gently took her hand. "You don't need to be anything," he said. "You just have to be you." She blinked, her eyes misty. "No one's ever said that before," she whispered. "Not once in my whole life." He gave a small smile. "Then let me be the first of many." A few hours later, an alert beeped on the control screen. Another transmission. This one was from a neutral station nearby, requesting docking for supplies. Jack looked at Lyra. "Want to see a peaceful station this time? No cages. No black market." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, standing up. "I want to see more places." With you, as they prepared for descent. She walked to him and placed her hand on his chest. "You've given me something no one else ever gave," she said. Jack looked at her gently. "What's that?" "Freedom," she whispered. "And someone to believe in." As the ship moved toward the lights of the peaceful station, Jack smiled. He hadn't meant to buy her, but somehow, in the darkest place, he had found something precious. And now, she wasn't just following him. She was walking beside him, not as a slave, not as property, but as someone becoming whole again. Someone who had stood in front of a gun, not to protect herself, but him. And Jack knew, deep in his heart, he would never let her walk alone again. The docking bay of the peaceful trade station buzzed with activity. Merchants wheeled in fresh crates. Engineers argued over parts, and aliens of every kind moved in all directions. Jack guided his ship into a quiet corner of the landing zone. Powering down gently, beside him stood Lyra. Now wearing a fresh outfit he had put together from spare clothes. It didn't fit perfectly, but it was hers, not something forced onto her. She looked nervous, her hand twitching slightly near his sleeve. Jack noticed and turned to her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. I've never walked into a place like this." "Without chains. You're not wearing any now." Jack said softly, "You're free." She smiled, but didn't move. "Can I hold your hand?" she whispered, her voice shy. Jack smiled and offered it. Anytime, fingers wrapped around fingers. And together, they walked into the light. The station was clean, warm, and full of life. No traders yelling. No crates with living girls inside. No collars, just people living, talking, laughing. Lyra kept close, eyes wide with wonder. A small alien child ran past her and laughed. Lyra gasped and stepped back. But when the child turned and waved at her, she smiled really. Smiled and waved back. "See?" Jack said gently, "There are still good places out there." Lyra looked up at him. "I want to find more of them," she said, "with you." They reached a supply booth where Jack bartered for engine coolant while he handled the trade. Lyra looked at shiny tools and glowing wires nearby. Then her eyes stopped on a necklace similar to the one Jack had given her. Only this one was red. The color of union in her culture. She stared at it quietly, then turned back to Jack. "Can I ask a strange question?" Jack finished the deal and faced her. "You've asked plenty of those already," he said with a smirk. "What's one more?" She bit her lip and stepped closer. "Back where I come from. When someone saves your life and gives you your name back, They're considered more than just a friend. Jack blinked, unsure where she was going with this. Lyra continued, their family. Or something even deeper. She held up the red necklace. What would it mean to you if I gave this to you? Jack stared at her, realizing the weight of her words. He wasn't just someone who helped her escape. He had become her protector. Her safe place, her heart. He gently touched the necklace and smiled. It would mean I'd never leave your side, he said. Not ever. She looked at the ground, her cheeks blushing softly. Then, would it be okay if we made this ship our home? Jack stepped forward and took her hand again. Home isn't the ship, he said. It's wherever we go. As long as we're together, they returned to the ship as quiet partners. Not rescuer and rescued, not master and servant, but equals. They stored the supplies and cleaned the cabin together. They cooked and ate side by side, laughing at how terrible Jack's cooking was compared to Lyra's, and that night, in the calm of the stars, Jack gave her something simple, an old data pad he rewired and fixed just for her. It's for you, he said. You can write, read, draw whatever you want. Lyra held it like it was a treasure. She sat cross-legged on the floor and tapped the screen, then slowly typed one sentence. My name is Lyra. I am free. She showed it to Jack proudly, and he nodded. Yes, you are. Then she typed again. And this human is mine. Jack laughed. That's a strong claim, Lyra. Smiled, then challenged it. She teased, but Jack didn't. He just reached out and pulled her into a warm, safe hug. Weeks later, their ship cruised through a blue nebula, engines humming strong. They had visited news stations, seen colorful markets, helped a lost child return to her parents. They were becoming something. More something beautiful in a small corner of the ship. Lyra painted flowers on the wall with a data stylus. Jack passed by and paused. What's that supposed to be? A garden, she said proudly. I've never seen one, so I'm making my own. Jack smiled. Want to build a real one someday? Lyra turned to him, eyes glowing. With you. Yes. And so, the man who only wanted a ship part ended up finding something far greater. Not a slave, not a servant, but a soul who had been lost and chose to stay with him. And the girl who was supposed to be used and forgotten became his family, his purpose, his home. Together, they drifted among the stars, not as strangers, but as two broken pieces that finally fit.